Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Ray and myself, on RUOK Day. I'm Alex Hattingh and I head up People and Culture for Employment Hero. And I think we'll all agree that today's RUOK Day is pretty significant given what 2020 has thrown at us with COVID. So if we would like to move to the next slide, please. Based on a recent global study, 69% of employees claim that COVID-19 is the most stressful time of their entire career. And this global study even included people in the States where they rated COVID-19 as being more stressful than experiencing something as horrific as September 11. So when we talk about employee wellbeing, it was important before COVID, but I think we're all finding ourselves and we're seeing that there's a massive spike in stress and anxiety. And so more than ever, we're all looking for tools. How do we cope during this crisis and the uncertainty? How do we help our employees to build resilience? And how do we build our own resilience? Let's talk a little bit about what wellbeing is. So wellbeing is very holistic. It's about physical, emotional, mental, and social state. It's more than wellness, which typically tends to focus on a person's physical health. So when people are in a state of wellbeing at work, they're generally able to develop to their own potential, work really productively, be creative and innovative. They can build positive relationships with others, and they can cope with the normal stresses of life, both in work and outside of life, and make a really meaningful contribution. So when we try to improve employee wellbeing at work, it's best if we try and focus on aspects that are largely impacted or determined by workplace factors. What does this mean? It means that we're able to directly address any areas of wellness rather than simply providing support. So going that one step further. So I'm really thrilled today to be introducing Ray. Ray has joined Employment Hero as our Head of Financial Wellness. He has a passion for overall wellness, and with this passion, Ray pursued and completed a degree focused on behavioural psychology, where his mission is to really merge the psychology world with a focus on overall human wellness. So I'm thrilled to have our own ray of sunshine talk us through RUOK Day today, and how can we all deal with the messiness, complexity, and uncertainty of 2020. Over to you, Ray.
Thank you, Alex. And just to confirm that you're able to hear me okay?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yep, brilliant. Fantastic. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate you taking the time today. As an introduction to RUOK Day, the mission of the initiative is to inspire and empower everyone to meaningfully connect with and support the people that are around them. There's an appreciation that you tend to spend a lot of time with the people that you work with, often more than friends or family. So we find ourselves in a unique situation in the work context where we might be able to identify some early warning signals of our peers. In this session today, I'll be working in two parts. The first half will be if you're looking to engage with somebody who you think may be struggling, what are some tricks and tips that you can think about there? And then the second half, I want to turn in on ourselves and look in the mirror a little bit and think about what tricks or tips, certainly things that I've taken away and baked into my day-to-day to help promote a more well life, I suppose. As a starting point, I'd like to start with a public service announcement. You're not expected to have any answers in this stuff. Unless any of us registered today are clinical psychologists, you're not expected to be performing at that level. So take all that pressure off yourself. Mental well-being super comes down to the people as individuals. So whenever you engage with this sort of stuff and these types of presentations, I ask that you take with you the elements that are helpful, and for anything that doesn't help or not quite or doesn't quite resonate, please leave that behind. So long as you've got one or two things to take away, that's fantastic. But there's no pressure on you to have all of the answers. The fact that you're here today, really awesome start, and I commend you all for being here. Look, Alex started by talking through the pressures of the present day, and I won't go too far down this track, but I do think it's important that we recognize the journey that people have gone on. So in what I would call the first wave, there was a collective recognition in society that it was important for us to rally. We all got behind each other, and I'm a big sports fan, so there's analogies left, right, and center on sporting teams rallying to get behind a struggle, I suppose, and get ourselves on the other side of it. The issue is that after we've all rallied and we've done everything that was asked of us, that we're now asked to do it again, especially for those of you who are signing in from Victoria. And those overseas, where our team is an international team. So we've got all sorts of different jurisdictions that we're playing with. And I just want us to collectively recognize that we've been asked to do something once, not twice, and it can really burn out our resilience. So RUOK Day 2020, what a timely opportunity for us to be talking about this stuff. A big reason why COVID and what's going on at the moment is painful and painful beyond the obvious. Can't go outside and we've lost our freedom. It comes down to behavior change, and I won't spend too much time talking about the technical reasons why, but the short version is when we have a behavior change that we want to stick with, there's a process that we need to go through. Think about anyone who quits smoking or wants to go to the gym. It's a process that you go through, and what we've found ourselves with is not once but twice, with a behavior change has been forced on us. So it feels uncomfortable. And I find that it's a big reason why, even if we're still employed and earning the same money that we did, and in fact, we might even be saving a little bit because we're not going out all the time, that we're still not finding that we're not as happy or maybe appreciative of things as we could. There's a big reason why, and it's biology that's playing us there. And I thought it'd be important to introduce a theory called the set point of happiness, and it does talk to what's going on at the moment. So if we think back to the two waves that I spoke about earlier, and we think about the inverse of that being our happiness, this graph here, if you can see my mouse here looking wave one, here looking wave two, basically what I'm showing here is that the variation in our happiness is inverse to when we've been locked inside. The idea of the set point of happiness is that we revert back to our set point over time. If you think about the lottery as an example, or lottery winners, there's countless stories of people who have been over the moon because they've absolutely hit literally the lottery, the jackpot. But afterwards, they find that they're no happier than they would have been otherwise. On the opposite side, that's true as well for people who have faced a trauma or a critical condition or suffered a real sadness in their lives. Even though at the time it might feel like things will never go back to the way they were, the set point of happiness theory says that over time, things will become easier. The reason why that's great is because despite going up and down as we go through these waves, the really powerful thing that we have to keep in mind is that the factors around the set point of happiness sit here. These are the contributing parts. 50% is our genetics, that's mum and dad. 10% is external circumstances. Let's just look at this for a second. Only 10% of our set point of happiness is driven by what's going on around us. Clearly at the moment, it's astronomical, but why I want to share this is because 40% comes down to intentional activity. So using this as a guide, we can start to take the right steps away to increase our happiness. If we don't have a clinical reason why we're predisposed to illnesses, I suppose, 40% being intentional activity, what a lovely opportunity. RUOK Day is a perfect example of us actively pursuing the 40% in the most positive way possible. When it comes to who to ask, I'm not going to give you a list of things to check off against. Instead, I encourage you all to trust your gut. Think of it like you would with any of your mates, or if you're an older sibling, an older brother, or an older sister, think about observing your younger sibling. And a little bit like that, you can just sense, you feel it in your waters that something isn't quite right. For those that don't have siblings, or that analogy doesn't quite hit home, think about those that you're noticing might be more tired than usual, less talkative than usual, less sociable than usual. The key phrase there is than usual. The biggest thing here for work colleagues, as I said before, is that we spend so much time. So even the slightest change in people's behaviors, those that we work with are often the ones that will be able to identify it first. So especially now, given we're all talking digitally, we see it less as we go around the office. So do keep that in mind. There's some of the warning signals for you to keep at the front of your mind, especially on a day like today. If you do identify that somebody's not on their game, the first thing is to really talk to them. Simply ask them if they're okay. And that's an enormous thing. Make sure you get your timing right. There's no time pressure to end the conversation quickly. You've not asked them where other people are in earshot and the environment generally is comfortable to be in. Know that it's okay to tell them that you've noticed a change and that you really are just checking in because you care. It might come a little bit naturally to those of us who are older siblings, as I said, but just make sure you're relaxed in your approach. You don't want them to feel like they're under investigation. Asking open-ended questions is a real key. For anyone in HR or sales or marketing, you will appreciate the power of open-ended questions versus closed questions. What's been happening? Why do you think that is? Can really help get someone going. And if they're not okay, what do you do next? It's a big theme of Are You OK Day this year, is to say, okay, great. Even if you take the step of asking people and starting the conversation, it's important that we recognize the conversation will continue from there. So what do we say next? I'll start by saying what not to do, and that's to judge what somebody says. If we just take a second and recognize that it's actually pretty hard to be open and talk about our feelings. Like I'm a fella in my 30s, and talking about my emotions doesn't come as come naturally, I suppose. So if I'm being asked to do it, I'm being pretty raw and vulnerable, I suppose. So appreciating that is really important. From a career perspective, I'm an advisor by nature. My job is to tell people what I think. An enormous thing in psychology, and one of the things that I struggled with in my early days when I did the degree, is that you absolutely should not impose what your opinions are on somebody else's problems. Especially if their problems don't resonate with you. It can be so easy to jump in with solutions because you care and you think you might have an answer. What you don't want to do is have somebody feel like you're putting down their problems, or that there's a bit of a disconnect there. Your job, and it's an uncomfortable one, is to sit with the discomfort, allow them the opportunity to vent, take the pressure away from yourself to have any solutions, and just keep your mouth closed. In psychology and in coaching, a big part of engaging with somebody and giving somebody the space to talk about what's important to them is to embrace silence. And if there is an awkward silence, it's the person who talks first loses. So if you're instigating the conversation, I encourage you all, when a silence comes, wait for it, give the person the space to continue to talk. Saying things like, I know what you're going through, not so helpful. Look on the bright side, just focus on the positives. It runs the risk of dismissing somebody's concern. So please try to listen without judgment. It's super difficult to do. I know it is, but if you can bake in a little bit of this, you're on the way to a good conversation. Listen actively. For anyone who is taking the time to look into communication, certainly for those in marketing and sales, as I said earlier, it's all about taking action. Try to avoid rushing the conversation and not being afraid, as I said earlier, of sitting with silence. Give the person the space to express what they're feeling and what they're going through. Really, really important. listening actively is differentiated away from just waiting for your turn to speak. Being conscious and a conscious active listener is a real skill. Lots of content out there as well. If you Google the idea of listening actively, lots of good material out there. Next, I would say is to encourage action. Words are helpful, but words without action is really just a good conversation and nothing else. In some cases, and Are You Okay? They say that if anyone's feeling sad or having issues for longer than 2 weeks, then it might be an idea to raise the introduction of a doctor or a psychologist. And I'll share those details on the next page. More common than not, though, it won't be quite that severe, and it would be as simple as encouraging a conversation with a boss or with a friend or with a partner. It's important that we encourage action, and something that I would encourage you all to do as well is if you do go down the path of having this conversation, and good on you for doing it, just pop a little note in the diary 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, 2 weeks after the conversation, just to send them a little text afterwards and say, hey, we had a conversation previously, just want to check in and see how you're going. I'll sit on this slide for a couple of seconds to give everyone the chance to take a screenshot. This is the resources that Are You OK Day have sent around. The feedback that I've had from people who have engaged with these services is that they've found it tremendously helpful. So, there's the notion of a suicide callback line is really, really severe. But I encourage you to, if you're in doubt, engage. If you're in doubt, engage. Have the conversation. A conversation that takes up one of these team members 5 minutes where they maybe didn't need to is so much better than the alternative. So encourage action always. I have a mission for you all, and that is by the end of this week and next week to keep in mind the idea of Are You OK Day. And when you go into your digital meetings, just at some natural point in the meeting, take a breath and take a step back, look in and consciously notice those that are in the room. Are any of them giving you some early indications that things might not be as good as they ordinarily might be? And maybe that's an opportunity for you to reach out and just let them know that you're there. Now, with all of that said, I'm going to put the mirror in front of us all and really share with you some of the things that I've baked in my day-to-day to help build resilience, I suppose, especially in times like now. It's one of my bugbears that when I go into presentations on any sort of subject matter, the presenter talks about all the merits of an idea. Mental health, really important. We should all understand mental health. Let's get active in mental health. Yeah, great, fantastic. But then they stop when it gets to what you actually should do or starting to uncover some of the thinking there. So I want you to walk away with some tangible things today. Ask yourself, what is one thing that you can do today? There's this notion of busyness when it comes to work, and where we can all fall victim of Slack, to Zoom meetings, to emails, and dealing with everyone else's priorities of our time. And then when we get to Friday afternoon, we're exhausted, we've worked long hours, and we think about that one thing that we needed to knock over this week and it hasn't been looked at yet. It can easily happen. So I ask you all to be really strict with your focus and your attention and be ruthless about it. And ask yourself when you get to your desk every day, one thing that you can do to make tomorrow easier. You do that over the year. And of course, there's so many things that you've managed to solve over the years. So do keep that in mind, please. Like a professional kicker, find your process. I'm a football fan, like a rugby fan. So I noticed that sometimes kickers, when they're on the sidelines and they're miles away from the goalpost, they take a long time, they focus, they take a step, they follow their process. They kick the ball and more often than not, they get pretty close. What surprises me though, is the same professional kickers, when they're right in front of the post and even I could kick it over, they still follow the same process. They still take 20 to 30 to 40 seconds and follow their process. And I'm like, what is going on? They kick the hell out of the ball and it goes to the back end of the stadium. And I think it's so overkill until somebody shared with me, no. all they've done is to find a process which gets them to where they need to be, is to be successful, is to get the ball over the line. So if they change their process when the task is seemingly easier, they run the risk of tripping over. I encourage you all to do the same. What I think about for us in the professional context is I need to dress for work. I need to be mentally ready. I need to be prepared and tidy. And whilst I'm in my living room, yes, there are some key things that I can bake into my environment to make sure that I'm at work when I'm at work. Don't believe every negative thought you have. What I want us just to take a recognition of is that in order to help you to survive, your brain has been wired to pay more attention to the things that are going to threaten your survival. It's the way we're built. Ask yourself if what you are ruminating on is actually life-threatening. Is it even helpful? If not, gently refocus your mind towards something positive, or better yet, something that makes you laugh. Even better, laugh at yourself. When we think negatively, or when we think just generally, we do fall into this natural habit of buying into the narrative that we've set for ourselves. It's not truth. It's not the truth. What we believe or what we think isn't necessarily reflective of the real world. I think about this idea of biology takes millions of years for us to develop and have our brains and bodies adapt to the environment around us. Now, if we think about the actual environment around us over the past 100 years, there's no way our bodies could have kept pace with what's going on. So we're literally running around the jungle, running away from animals that are going to kill us, sat at our work desk, trying to figure out why we're so stressed and why we're dealing with all of these problems, or why we seem to be struggling with these problems. Take a step back from yourself for a second, recognize if you've got a negative belief, or if you're falling victim to living out this narrative that you've played out, and challenge yourself on it. Keep yourself honest, because sometimes you'll find, and more often than not, you'll find it's not always true. Separate work from home, even when you're working from home. So I shared this story with our team a little bit earlier, where my wife and I were in a one-bedroom apartment at the start of Corona, and she works in professional services, as do I. So we were sat at the dining table working next to each other, driving each other nuts, but we didn't have a spare room that we could go on unless we were going to lay on our bed and do meetings from there. So what we started to do was bake in a bit of a process. So every morning, what I would do is change the orientation of the dining table, literally turn it 45 degrees. From under the dining table, we would bring out both of our laptops and second screens and keyboards and all of our work setup, connect it all, make sure we're all happy there. Then we would go have a walk around the block, and that was our way of commuting to work. When we came back into our home, it wasn't our home anymore. The dining table had changed its orientation. We were at work. Work, get to 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Then what we would do is change the orientation back to the way it was at the start of the day, hide away all of our computer and work stuff. So it was deep under the dining table. You couldn't actually see it. Leave the apartment, go for a walk around the block again. And then we would arrive home. We were no longer at work, but we were at home. It's such a small thing. And for those of us that don't have the luxury of a spare bedroom or a big home, as an example, especially for those, I think of those in Victoria who might not have the luxury of being able to move around too far, and it can feel very isolating. There's even a solution for you. And finally, before I hand back to Alex, run, please run. You're built to do it. As I say, we're biologically, we're still running around from the animals that are trying to kill us. So if we can, please run. The science behind exercise and how important it is for not only you, but your team to exercise as much as possible. The amount of times that I've struggled with an issue or an email or a client, and it just felt like it was an impossible task to then go for a run or go to the gym and return back the next day. Seemingly difficult problems were no longer difficult. So please run. Encourage all of your colleagues to run as well. With that, Alex, I might hand back to yourself if you open to talking through the second or the last part of the presentation.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ray. And there were some real pearls of wisdom in there, including I really love the no judgment piece. That can be a really hard thing to do, not jump into that advice mode straight away, as well as using that commute time and separating your home from your work, because I think a lot of us are falling victim to working very long hours and not having that separation. So I thought I might just launch a quick poll to see who has asked someone today if they are okay. Let's see how we're doing. Wow, we've got, yep, moving up. I'll end the poll now. So we have 79% have already asked someone today how they're doing, and 21% are yet to get there. So they're pretty good statistics, and I'll run another poll at the end. So I thought I would start by sharing with you some of the things we're doing at Employment Hero to keep our energy up. And look, let me highlight, we're learning as we go. 2020 has thrown us so many curveballs. And so we're iterating and learning as we're going. We're not doing things perfectly by any means, but some things that we've found that have really worked well is asking people to turn videos on and then just saying, look, if you are fatigued, feel free to turn it off if it's getting towards the end of the day. Having a regular cadence we've found really good across the business because it also provides transparency so that each and every team is aware of what other teams are doing. And a good example are daily stand-ups for each team and weekly one-on-ones between managers and their employees. Now, reward and recognition and celebrations are so important as we are doing remote work and so important for our psychology as well. And we do that through our own platform. Now, if you don't have Employment Hero, you can instill things through Slack, through Teams, through all sorts of technology solutions, whatever you use for messaging. Really encourage your leaders to start championing the behavior of recognizing people in real time, and you'll start to see all of your employees start to follow. Surveys. Ask your employees how you're doing with wellbeing. Have they got suggestions? And again, if you don't have a survey tool, SurveyMonkey, there are a lot of free platforms out there. Google Forms, a lot of free platforms out there where you can actually talk to your employees. Using one-on-one templates we've found to be really good. Personal check-ins are really vital while we're doing remote work. And as part of our resource hub, we do have one-on-one templates there with some really good questions that a manager can ask employees. We've found using themes for our weekly all hands to be really fun and effective. So your favourite sports teams gear, for example, or if it's something like RUOK Day, theming it up and having people wear yellow. We've done virtual hangouts so that people from various teams can drop in and see other people. Some people drop in for 5 minutes, some people stay on for half an hour, and then we've tried to theme up a Thursday check-in, and that might be someone volunteering to do a cooking lesson. We've found an online Pictionary game that's been really fun, as well as a get to know new people session that we had last Thursday. And also try and remember to keep things fun through your communications channel. So we've set up a social sharing channel as well as an animals being cute channel. And it's voluntary for people to sign up for those channels, but it just means that you're putting a bit of fun into people's day and allowing them to have a little bit of a distraction. And back to Ray's point, a laugh. There's nothing more healthy than a laugh. Next slide, please. I just wanted to touch on employee assistance programs and how impactful they are. So there are 1 in 2 managers in Australia believe that their employees are immune to mental illness, yet 20% of Australians aged between 16 and 85 will experience mental illness this year, if not more than 20%. So in the wake of COVID-19, Beyond Blue has estimated that their call numbers have increased by 40 to 60% since lockdown first began. So if you want to ensure that you have happy, healthy, productive employees, you need to put employee wellbeing programs in place. So it doesn't cost much, $5 per employee per month, and you can provide your employees with professional support through an employee assistance program. So pre-COVID, untreated mental health conditions cost Australian workplaces an estimated $12 billion a year in absenteeism, preteeism, and compensation claims. So supporting mental health in the workplace isn't just the right thing to do by your people, it's the right thing to do by your business. So what is an employee assistance program? It's a fundamental offering for a comprehensive wellness program for your people. So it offers services such as a professional psychologist that's completely confidential that your employees can reach out to during tough times. Here at Employment Hero, we use Acacia as an add-on to our platform. And we've had incredible feedback from our employees who have used Acacia. They've used the psychologist confidentially, and it can be really important if you're going through a tough time to be able to talk to someone outside family and friends who is professionally trained to give the right advice. So you might ask, how are you going to get buy-in and how do you get started? My best advice is to use the statistics, and we will send this deck out. So show your leadership team the cost of not doing wellbeing. And then launch a wellbeing survey to your employees. And again, our resource centre does have some good survey templates for you. And if you don't have Employment Hero, use SurveyMonkey. It's really simple. Assess the results with the leadership team, and most importantly, present them out to your team with full transparency. If you have asks for things that you can't provide, like yoga or fruit or whatever it might be, just explain to your employees so they know they've been heard and listened to, that whilst this has been asked for, you currently don't have the budget to do it, however you will look into it. And then develop some programs based around the survey and the asks. Even think of putting together a wellness committee or a group of people who volunteer who are passionate about wellness, and you'll get lots of ideas running from them, and then it doesn't put a lot of onus on the leadership team. Launch your program and then go back again and ask your employees how you're doing. It's really important to have them drive what they're wanting in terms of their own wellness. So I'd love to launch another poll. Oh, I don't think the other one's there, or I can't figure it out. It's one of the two. I'd love to flip over to Q&A. And Scott Goodwin has raised a hand. Oh, there we go. We've got the second one launched there. Scott, did you want to unmute and ask your question? No, okay. So we have asked who will be checking in with at least one person today about how they're doing, and we've wonderfully had a 96% response rate. And, you know, again, I think it's a lot, you know, it's very conscious in all of our minds to ask someone today how you're doing. However, it's really, really hard to know how to respond if someone says they're not doing well or they're not doing okay. So hopefully Ray's tips today have really helped. So if we move to Q&A, we have a question from Catherine. It's a good point not to make a judgment on the person's problem, but one of the hardest items to discuss is financial well-being. They may not be okay. We would rather talk about our weight and our sex life than our money worries. Do many people understand the importance of financial well-being that is non-product and jargon-free, to assist staff? So Ray, I'm not sure if you have some advice around, I guess, broaching the topic and opening up to someone who might not be doing well financially.
Yeah, it's something the industry in the past has been really poor at, frankly. Product has traditionally driven a lot of these conversations, although in 2014, don't quote me on that, but I believe it was 2014, the government launched a national financial literacy strategy, which is now known as the Financial Capability Strategy. From that, websites such as Money Smart, which is a very popular website now, has come to fruition, which is fantastic. The industry is busily, and the Royal Commission was a big driver of this, the industry is busily moving away from product conversation to education. I know that for the Employment Hero users, as an example, I'm busily building frameworks for people to educate themselves, to make well-informed decisions rather than talking product. There are a number of different resources available now. Money Smart, really good site, and financial capability as well.
Thank you. And then we have another question or something here. Research has evidenced the lack of financial well-being is the #1 item to cause stress and mental health issues, even more than health, workplace and relationships. It doesn't seem to be on the corporate agenda, with more than 65% of employers not having a financial well-being component within their well-being program. The problem then becomes a curve rather than prevention. Can you do a poll on how many have a financial wellbeing program? We might not be able to launch a poll, but we could perhaps raise hands if you have a financial wellness program within your company. So yeah, four raised hands, 5, 7, 6. So you'll see, yeah, so that's pretty low. We've got 103 attendees and only 4 people have raised their hands. I would raise my hand in us hiring Ray, and there will be a lot more coming from Employment Hero in terms of resources around financial wellbeing as Ray sets up the function. So please look out for a lot more from us regarding financial wellness. And thank you for that question. I couldn't agree more that financial does cause such a strain on people, especially with what we're going through with COVID and so many people unfortunately out of jobs. So it looks like we might be out of questions. Again, a huge thank you for joining us. Please feel free to unmute and ask any questions directly. Please do ask someone today, whether it's a family member, friends, or someone at work, how they're doing, or even if it's this week, now that you know how to respond, and especially so if you know anyone in Victoria and Melbourne who are dealing with the lockdown and the impact that isolation can have on you, as well as overwork and getting into bad habits. Just having someone reach out to you and knowing that you've got a friend or someone around can really, really help with the psychology of how you're feeling. We have had one more question come in. If someone is struggling with their mental health at work, how to treat them with compassion without making them feel really alienated or like they're being treated differently? Ray, would you be able to jump in on that one?
Yeah, it would be to really empathize with that person. So again, my guidance would be not to talk, not to go to any solution, but rather just hear the conversation, allow the conversation to be heard. Again, I struggle to get away from the analogy of an older sibling or even that of a parent type thing where you can help people without them feeling like they're being alienated. Alex, as in HR, I imagine there are that many conversations that are sensitive, and over time, the work environment's not unfamiliar with sensitive conversations being had for particular team members. So this would be no different, to handle it with care and with privacy.
Yeah, and just reassuring the person that the conversation you are having is completely confidential, I think helps them not to feel alienated, and then they shouldn't feel like they're being treated differently. We have another question, which is, how do you know the difference between burnout and someone struggling with their mental health?
This is a great one. Ben Thompson, the CEO, and I, we did a workshop on this just earlier. And burnout is one of those buzzwords, I suppose, where it can imply but mean a whole bunch of different things. So if you think about a center point, anything to one side of the spectrum is an illness. So depression and anxiety and those types of things. Burnout can often imply but that on the other side of it is where people are just stressed or tired and struggling with the day-to-day. Burnout on that side of it is more of a coaching and more of what we're talking about today. I believe the session from Ben and I was recorded. So maybe Julia, something that might be helpful to share around after today is a link to that recording.
Great, thanks, Ray. And then there's another question. How do I start building out an employee wellness program? I think the best place to start, and if you don't have a survey tool, then use SurveyMonkey or Google Forms. I would start by asking your employees, and we have in our resource centre a templated question, and you can ask with simple questions. We want to start to build out an employee wellness program. Are You OK Day has sparked that, combined with the situation that we're in with COVID. What suggestions would you have? What kind of programs would you like to see? And then just assess what answers come through. And it means you're listening to your employees and you're responding to them as you start to build out that wellness program. Also, going back to those statistics, if you're trying to get buy-in from someone like a CFO, then going back to productivity and money lost by not having a wellness program and having the healthiest, happiest employees you can really get them on the hook. Great, guys. We'll have, one more. I feel like people might not tell the truth in the workplace for a fear of not acting professionally. How can I let them know it's a safe place? We're very corporate. So the best way to do this is actually during a one-on-one with someone. So if you're a manager, certainly checking in with your employee and asking them how they're doing. As a manager, though, there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable and giving your employees that psychological safety to say, I'm having barriers, I'm having hurdles, or I didn't deliver on this project because I'm actually struggling in my personal life. And you can open the door by saying, are you doing okay? COVID, there's a lot of uncertain times. It's a safe place to talk to me. In very corporate worlds, I would agree, it's really, really hard to let them know it's a safe place. So just put it out there and let the people know that it is safe. Now, if you're reaching out to a peer who you may have picked up some visual cues that they're not doing well, they're late, their camera's off, take them out for coffee or have a virtual coffee with them and let them know that it is a safe place and that you're going to keep everything confidential, provided it's nothing to do with bullying or sexual harassment or anything that you're compelled to report. So thanks, everyone, and thank you, Ray. The insights were absolutely incredible today, and I loved the self-care piece as well as, the non-judgment piece. It's been really, really terrific. So thanks for joining, everyone, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.